Hey everyone, this is Zephyr, and welcome to the Bailey Wiki channel, where we teach everyday DMs how to create truly amazing experiences for their players by combining art and technology. If you're a DM who likes to wow your players and you're using platforms like Dungeon Draft and Foundry Virtual Tabletop, then you're in the right place. Today, we're going to be covering one of the Ripper's latest early access premium modules, and that is Simple Quest. This really changes the game for how you can display information to your players and use your journal entries within Foundry VTT. This module basically sits atop the journal entry system within Foundry, adds some great new features to it, and gives you a beautiful interface to work with for creating really gorgeous looking entries. In order to access this module, you'll need to be one of Ripper's patrons. As of the time of this recording, you'll need to be in his early access tier to gain access. And once you have that access, you can install directly through the Foundry module browser. There are no additional modules required. So with that said, let's go ahead and dive in and take a look at Simple Quest. When you first install and activate Simple Quest, the module will then bring in a couple of folders and some journal entries into your journal directory. This is going to be used for actually building out your quest log with Simple Quest. You can verify that this has been done by going to your journal directory. You should be able to see this lore tab and this quest tab. Both of these folders have a variety of journal entries in them that we'll build upon later, and we'll also show you how to interact with them here in the directory as well as in the Simple Quest log. As far as getting to Simple Quest itself, you have three options for navigating there. The first is to click the Simple Quest button in your journal directory. Next, you can go to the left in your Journal Notes tool. There's now a subtool for Toggle Simple Quest. And then finally, you can press the keyboard shortcut, which is bound to J by default. However you arrived at Simple Quest, you will first be greeted on the Quests tab, and you'll have the first tour of many. Simple Quest has tours for both the overall interface as well as each of these sections, or tabs as we will refer to them. You can go through these for a reminder of some of the things we covered in this video, as well as some nice highlighting of these different areas. Once you finish the tours, you can always reset their progress by going to your game settings and tour management. For the purposes of this, we'll continue on our own then. So at the top, we have those sections as we said. So each of these sections or tabs is going to correspond to the main area that you'll be putting content in. You start off with the quests. Then we also have a lore tab for putting in extra information about your world, a maps section, and then two journal sections for your personal journal and your party journal. Your players will also have their own personal journal, and the party journal is going to be visible to you and all of your players. If you want to change the names of these tabs or sections, you can right click on any of them, and that's going to bring up this tab configuration menu that allows you to change the names if you want to have a different flavor to it. For example, contracts instead of quests, etc. Finally, in terms of the main navigation, you can also hover in the top right corner in order to change the size of Simple Quest from full screen to windowed. And then down at the bottom, we have some options for configuring font, whether you want a smaller or larger size. And you can continue clicking to adjust it in either direction. And then at the bottom right, you have a paint palette icon that opens a theme configuration selector. And this allows you to change the themes for yourself. I personally like the default quite a bit, so I'm going to stick with that. With that little tour of the main area out of the way, we're going to go ahead and dive into the namesake category of quests. There's only one entry here to begin with, and that is going to be the Welcome to Simple Quest section. And that is going to have some different pieces for getting started. Notice that this has great little check marks, and every quest in the quest section is going to have options for flagging for update. So see there's this little exclamation mark, and that is going to remain there until you have read it and then closed and reopened Simple Quest. And when we click on this, you'll also see that there is a little pop-up here, and that will take you directly there as well. So for example, if we were to tick one of these and then close Simple Quest, if we click on the banner, it will reopen to that particular section. And so your players who have visibility of this same quest can see that there was an update posted to the quest, and they can go check out what has changed. Obviously, most of the time, you're probably going to be making these changes prior to session, so your players will know to look for that exclamation mark to see where they should be reading up. When your players are going to read up, they'll go to this main navigation area to the left on each of the tabs. The larger sections that have dropdowns are going to be your categories, so your more overarching sections. And then the smaller dropdowns inside of them are going to be individual entries and then their headings within them. And those will get indented based upon the size of the heading. So heading 1 would be the largest, down to 2 and 3, and so on. If you want to add additional categories, there is an Add Category button. And again, you can hover over any of these buttons to see the tooltip, and you can name it whatever you would like, such as side quests. And when you finish that, if you want to rearrange it, you can move it up to be right here. We can add as many categories as we would like. So perhaps we want to have available as well. But if we decide that we don't want this, we actually delete categories from our journal entries, not from our Simple Quest. So if you close Simple Quest and go into your journals, then in the quests folder, you will then find the titles to all of the quest categories as well as the maps and party section. So if we no longer want to use available, we come here and we delete the journal entry here. How it kind of works is each of these particular journal entries, the title of it is the name of the category, and then each page is an entry. And if we return back and we want to rename one of these, like maybe instead of side quests, we actually want available contracts or something, we can just right click to open up that entry section. You can also use this if you know you're going to make a lot of changes to a lot of pages and you don't want to be moving through them in the Simple Quest editor for whatever reason. When you're ready to make a new entry, there's a lot of really awesome features with Simple Quest. So if we go ahead and hit Add Quest, it's going to add it to your active category here, but we can move that in a moment, and then come up with whatever name you would like. So we'll call this Explore Ruins. There's a lot of great features added to Simple Quest here for making the styling of journal entries much easier and much more beautiful. This page template section in particular is brand new, and there are several different kinds. I would highly recommend that you mess around a little bit, experiment with these, and see which ones you like and what all they can offer you. So if we're doing Exploring Ruins, I'm going to click a location option. And what's cool about this is it's going to ask me for an image, and it's going to automatically apply some magic to it. So here we'll go ahead and do, say, this sunken temple that we have in the Bailey Wiki landing pages module. See already we've got a gorgeous template right here. We have our image, and I don't have to worry about if this image is exactly the same aspect ratio as it's shown here. There is automatically a kind of filter applied to it to give this nice rough edge that, as you can see, looks really great in Simple Quest. It looks very beautiful, very polished, and it makes your image blend in really nicely instead of having a harsh border or you having to figure that out. Then you can adjust your templating as much or as little as you desire. And then if you want to continue expanding on this, you can add additional page templates. Some of them play more nicely with others than some of the other options. So maybe keep that in mind when you're experimenting. Here, I'm going to go with, say, a character grid, although I'm not going to use it for characters. Instead, I'm going to pick up other ruins that are part of a larger contract here. And it's going to go ahead and ask me for all of the images I want, one after the other here. And we'll see now we've got these 3 great sections down here at the bottom. And so you could use this to have maybe it's a main ruin or something like that. And to get into this ruin, then you've got to go to these other 3 locations, something to that effect. However you would like to do it. And then when you are ready, you can add additional page templates, or you can begin typing as normal or insert other things such as like a horizontal rule, anything that you would like to see. And from here, this is where we can actually start adding in our quest objectives. So quest objectives, as we kind of mentioned earlier when we were going over the Simple Quest section, is that a list. And for this, it doesn't matter whether it's a bulleted list or a numbered list. So we can just do a bulleted list here. And when we have this list completed and we're happy with all the changes we've made, then we can save it. And you'll notice that we have this really great journal entry here that's got a little bit of information going on. Again, all of these images look fantastic because of that little extra effect going on. And then we have our quest objectives. So that's going to be that list we made, whether it was ordered or unordered, it doesn't matter. There are these little checkboxes. And for each of these checkboxes, we can left click, and that's going to indicate that an objective is done, and it's going to mark this quest as updated. So it's going to notify our players and everything, as we mentioned before. We can uncheck that, and that will also send a notification. What if they happen to go to one of these ruins and they fail? The information they needed was already taken, or somehow a disaster occurred and the place collapsed before they could recover the artifact that they needed. Then perhaps that's a failure. And in order to mark that as a failure, you simply right click in the checkbox, and then we'll give this ominous red look right here. And it will again update the quest log and notify the party. Say they have failed far too many of these objectives and it's now impossible to actually finish the quest. You can use the move to option up at the top to move this quest from in progress to failed. And now it will populate the failed state, and moving it will also send this update. If we go back to progress, say they haven't actually failed, we can go ahead and check these off, but maybe there's some information that they don't have. Maybe they don't know that they need to go to these places. So in that case, we can actually hide these. If you hover over to the left of the checkboxes, a little pinkish purple button is going to show up, and you can click on that to then turn the text that same color, and that's going to actually hide that text. Your players will not be able to see these sections, including the box. They won't be able to see the box even though the box is not that pinkish purple. And if you want to reveal that after they've met whatever conditions you have in store, you can then click on that again to toggle it. And whenever you reveal things, it will notify. Hiding won't notify people because you don't want to give away that you took something away, right? But revealing it will show people. Now, you can do that to hide entire entries as well. So, for example, now you can see this whole Explore Ruin section is gone. It is worth noting that this, if you hide just a title, it is only going to disappear the heading here, right? It's not going to disappear the heading and all of the text. It's just the heading. So maybe you do that if you say, in this case, you describe a general location here, but you hide the name from them. Something like that could be a worthwhile application there. Again, we can go ahead and reveal that. And let's say the party has successfully explored everything. Once again, we can move this to completed for our quests, and we are all done and dusted there. But let's say there's maybe some other things that we can customize here. Maybe we can improve on this even more. So if we go into the edit section, we've got some additional options here. So we have our quest right here, right? So this is kind of the general information. So we can say, there is perhaps a deadline here, right? And we're going to impose a certain time limitation on players. And we'll go ahead and format this like the rest of the title here. Maybe put some information there. And we can actually use some specific callouts. If you're using the simple calendar module, then you have access to adding in these little tags for adding in time. And so you can put in time, and I happen to know my calendar on this world is somewhere in the 1490s or something like that. So we'll call it 1496, and we'll just call it, New Year's Day on that day. And when you've entered that in the proper format, and that's going to be listed on the wiki as well, you can go ahead and save and then close. And you'll notice that this deadline shows how long in the in-game calendar they have before the quest fails just automatically. But we can go even farther than that. Maybe there is also, we said that there are 4 ruins here, so we can do ruins explored. And we can also use a really cool feature called the count callout. So we can go ahead and paste this in. I'm pasting it in from the wiki, and it's @count, and then we're going to have an ID, and we can just call this ruins. And then we can set a max value. The max value is optional. And when we set that up, we can go ahead and save. And now we have this nice little counter here. If we left click, it's going to go up by 1. And if we right click, it's going to go down by 1. So you can use that to also show progress. If you want to replicate this count here, say you want it on multiple parts of the page, or actually this entry is a very long quest and you have more sections here, we can go ahead and maybe even put the count up here, and we can have the count for the ruins above the objectives. And because we are using the same ID on the same page, it's actually going to mirror each other. So if I left click here, it's 1 of 4. If I scroll up, it's still 1 of 4. And we can see that they will increase and decrease together. And again, you can't go over the 4, you'll roll back over. You can't go past 0, it'll stay at 0. So that's all really cool, but then there's also a lot of other options here in terms of formatting. This bold is all well and good, but maybe we want this to really stand out. We want to make sure our players don't miss this. If you go into the section where you have your formatting, such as bold and headings, etc., there are new callout sections where you can code things kind of similar to how you might see in a player's handbook or a DM's guide, where they have notes coded in certain ways. So we can put time here, and you'll notice that there's this nice coloring here indicating the deadline. And for the ruin counts, maybe we use a different callout like event or something like that. Then when we save, we have these nice big bold bars that kind of call attention to, hey, here's the important information you need to know. There are several of these with different icons, and you can play around with that, but they're really great additions here. And then finally, we also have the insert page option in here that is going to give us some other pieces. So go ahead and highlight our Explore These Ruins text. And then if we insert the page, we can add in some of these cool effects like parchment. And you can use this to really flavor some things. Maybe you want to have this mixture of modern and parchment look. Maybe you will prefer just one or the other, but there's a lot of great options for you. So I really encourage you to explore and play around with this, because this all just looks really great. And you can apply this to more than just the quest section, but also to the lore and journal sections as well. So you can make things look really gorgeous with pretty minimal amount of effort, thanks to all of the formatting stuff that Ripper has gone ahead and put in. After you have filled your quests and lore tabs with beautiful journal entries and information and quests and objectives for your players, you may find that you or your players need a little bit more help in finding things than just navigating via the categories. Enter the ever helpful search bar up here. You can use this to search via the category, via the title of the entry, and also via the headings. So if you search in failed, it'll bring up the failed category. We can go to explore for our ruins, or if you have your quest designed that there are lots of explore quests, you would have explore : and then a description of where you're going to go. You could bring up all of that type as well if you don't want to make that a separate category. And you can also search via these headings. So you could put in tab, and that will bring up the whole navigating the quests tab section here. And it will scroll down to that heading. It's going to center it for the most part. So you can use that to know that you'll get right to that heading, even if it's a long entry. Keep in mind again, though, that it's going to go through category, entry, and heading. So if you have important information that might be useful for searching for things, such as maybe it's a bounty hunter contract on a specific person, maybe putting their name either in the heading or in the entry title will be useful in searching them up at a later date when you have these entries filled. Now let's go ahead and dive into the lore tab. The lore tab has some useful information in its Welcome to the Lore tab entry that you can find under the Locations category. It's got some review of some things that we've already discussed, most importantly a reminder about the little purple button to hide and show entries to people. And then you can go ahead and flesh out or reorganize these as much as you would like. Now, another important thing that it brings up is the ability to add existing journals to the Simple Quest interface. So if you're bringing in Simple Quest to an existing world and you don't want to delete all of your entries, it's really painless to go ahead and incorporate that. If we close this out, I've got some entries on cities and settlements from my campaign, and I'll go ahead and drag those into the lore section. And now if I go ahead and reopen Simple Quest, we'll notice that this Bright Elm and Raven Bank section are here. These were originally set up as pages, and as you may have noticed, each of the categories is a journal, and then the subsections, the entries, are pages. So you may have to do some moving around to get everything into its appropriate place. But you can use this to save your hard work or just repurpose it and put it into a nicer format for your players, and you can abandon the original categories that are in the Simple Quest default setup. While you're going through and creating all of your great lore pieces and quests, there's some extra features with editing journal entries that might be of use to you. For instance, here on my Raven Bank, I have a bunch of districts here. These links are broken because I moved them from their old journal entry into a new one as they are pages. So these aren't going to work. However, I've gone ahead and fixed one of them, and it's Cobbler's Ring. Notice if I click on it while I'm in Simple Quest, and it is a part of Simple Quest in these entries, it's going to go ahead and use Simple Quest. However, if for whatever reason I was to open a journal entry, say if I opened the locations tab in my journals directory and I clicked on Cobbler's Ring there, it's going to take me to the journal. But if I go back into Raven Bank and I click on this first one, Castle Ravent, it's going to open up Simple Quest. You notice the icon is slightly different as well. If you go into edit, then you'll see here that we have the lore prefix in front as opposed to UUID. You can replace UUID whenever you drag a journal entry into place. So let's go ahead and walk through one of those real quick. So the next district would be Dark Barrow. We'll go ahead and drag that in, and that gives us that UUID that has been updated. If we want to change that to always open in Quest Helper, then we can simply change that to lore, and we'll do the same for Cobbler's Ring. Then when we save and close, and you return back, you'll notice that the icons are different, and they will take you directly there in Simple Quest. And also if you happen to open the journal entry. You can apply this same logic with whatever tab they're from. So you'll need to put in Quest instead of lore if you were to do that, for example, on, say, the Wanted contract. Just make sure that it matches the appropriate section. Now we're going to turn our attention, instead of the map page, to the My Journal and Party Journal pages. These are a lot simpler, and when we go to edit this, we can just put in my personal thoughts or whatever you want to keep for your own notes, and it will show up here. And you can search through different headings. So if you were to add a heading here and make this a heading 1 and save, those are the things you can index over here and search. So that's how you can keep your own journal organized. And then the party journal can be, conspiracy theories or whatever they want to be storing in here. This is going to be visible to all of you, both you, the GM, and all of the players. And those are going to show up here, and they direct right here. If you were to go into your journal entries and you want to see just where those are, it's going to be in quests, and under party, you'll see that there are these special pages, and we've got these icons indicating that they're hidden here. And that's just so that people don't see them from the journal entry section. By default, it's going to be set up so that it's automatically generated for each of your players and for yourself. We're going to turn now to the most complex and probably most powerful feature of Simple Quest, and that is the Maps tab. Here you can add a new map by clicking on the Add Map button, and we can go ahead and name it something descriptive. You can optionally add a caption and then select your image. One quick note is that the larger your image, the worse the performance is going to be. There are some steps on how you can create a more load efficient map entry in Simple Quest with a larger map. It involves kind of cutting up and breaking down the image into pieces and tiling it like a mosaic so that it loads more efficiently. There's instructions for that on the Simple Quest wiki, which we'll have linked in the description. So check that out if you're interested. Now we have our beautiful map here. And if we want to see anything about the controls, there's this handy How to Use the Maps tab. And unless you're using this a lot, you may need to come back here for a refresher. Holding left click is going to give you a marker. If you hold it, you can keep moving it. And then when you release, it will give you the option for a new marker where you can put a description. And we can then name it up at the top, and you can determine whether you want that to be visible all the time or not. Then when we save, by default, it's going to be this red dot. And when you hover over it, you'll get the description. You can right click to edit it further. For example, turning off that display label, or you can mark it as hidden from players, and you can change the different icons. If you want to move it, simply hold right click and you can drag it around. And if you right click where there are no icons, you can move throughout the map. Scroll wheel is going to zoom in on the map. You'll notice that the icons tend to stay the same scale. So if you want them to be larger, then you may need to bump them up a little bit. And your preference on the scale is obviously going to vary depending upon how you are decorating your map in here. Then if you want to measure the distance between 2 points, you can hold down Control, and that gives you this handy ruler tool that allows you to measure distance as the crow flies. You'll also notice up here we have a scale. So you can change the scale to anything you want. For example, it's 5 miles now, and we can see that dynamically it's changing. But you're not just limited to that. You can actually make things say 1 day, or perhaps days, so that it displays nice. So you can see that you can change the units as well as the magnitude of the distance here. And one of the really awesome features of the Simple Quest mapping system is the Fog of War brush. By holding down Shift, you'll see that a small dotted line shows up indicating a circle, and that's going to be my Fog of War brush. Holding down Shift, I can left click to mask off the image, or I can hold right click to reveal areas, allowing to have manual exploration of the area. So players aren't going to be able to see anything in the darkness here. If you want to reset, you can go ahead and click this Reset Enable Fog of War, and that's going to completely close off the map. That seems like the lesser of two evils, accidentally hiding some things that your players have already seen versus showing your players some spoilers for things they've much yet to see. If you want to quickly get rid of all of it, then you can hold down Shift and scroll wheel to change the size of your brush, and you can also adjust it by adjusting the slider up here at the top. And you can also show the map to all of your players, and you can make additional edits to the captions, etc. You can also use map pins to link entries to journals, etc. If you right click to edit, you'll notice that this interface stays open as you navigate to other sections of Simple Quest Helper. From here, you can drag in journals and pages. The easiest way to do so is to right click and edit one of these, and then you can drag directly from the journal there. And that's going to have the link right there. And when you save, you can return to the map. And now when you left click, this entry appears and you can scroll through it and navigate it. And if you click on links, it will take you to the other section. But otherwise, you'll notice that you still have the maps over here to the left. You're not actually leaving the map tab when you navigate through this, which makes it a really nice experience to be able to quickly sift through several different journal notes about different locations on a map. But these pins can do so much more than just journal entries and linking into Quest Helper. It's a little easier to work with if we minimize it, but you can also even drop in macros as pins. And when you click on it, it will activate the macro. This might have a little bit more niche application, but still a really cool feature, and I'm sure there are some really crazy ideas out there that people have for taking advantage of this. If you ever want to get rid of one of these notes, you simply right-click it, and at the bottom there is a delete option, and you are good to go. Of course, if you already have your world map set up and you have a bunch of map pins with journal notes established, you don't want to lose all of that work when you convert to Simple Quest for handling your world map and Fog of War, etc. Thankfully, Ripper has thought of that, and he has added a great little macro function that you can call that will convert the scene that you're looking at to a map. So I'm going to go ahead and execute that. And then when I go into Simple Quest, I have this great map here, and it's using the exact same background image as my scene, and it has all of my map notes preserved. This is a pretty large map, so this is something where I would definitely want to consider going to the wiki and following the instructions for supersized maps and optimal loading there. But you can see as you right-click on any of these markers that's got the same icons, same titles. If it has a description in there, it will go ahead and put that in there. And if you have any linked journal entries or custom assets, it will also reference that. So you very quickly have this nice version in the map section that you can then add your Fog of War to, reveal things, add different links, all of those good features that we've got with Simple Quest. So it's a great feature to have to be able to save all of that work and convert it into this nice format with Simple Quest. And that's going to conclude our showcase and tutorial for Ripper's Simple Quest module. We think that this is a beautiful and easy way to really leverage Foundry's journal entry system. And today we went over mainly the basics. There's still a few advanced tips and tricks that you can get into, from making those super large maps to also leveraging macros and combining this with Monk's active tile triggers to create some really impressive landing pages. So let us know if you'd be interested in learning more about that, or if you'd like to see some of our takes on implementing this in those types of applications. Once again, this has been Zephyr with the Bailey Wiki channel. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to keep up with all of our latest content, and consider becoming a patron. Not only do you support the channel, but you also gain access to all of the modular systems and scenes that we've ever made, including a lot of the gorgeous background material that you've seen today, and our landing pages module that leverages things like this more heavily. Again, this has been Zephyr. Thank you so much for watching, happy gaming, and have a good one.